Now that we created our topic overview, we'll create the post page, which we see here. We see that we are still using a table to structure our content, so we have one table per post. We still have the pagination, but the sort and filter widget is gone. Then instead we have this form to reply to the topic and an inline form to log in or create an account if the user hasn't already logged in. Let's start. We'll start with duplicating our file and just calling it post. Now first we want to change our title to forum-post. Then we'll update our breadcrumb. So we move the forum name breadcrumb item one level up, and now our active breadcrumb item will be this text here, which is the title for the post. Okay. We'll also change this text to be the title of the post. And now let's have a quick look back in the browser. We see that we only need 2 columns, and in each table we'll have 2 rows, but a 3rd row in this first table, which is the author and message heading. So in this heading tag, we'll remove 2 of the columns and then change these to author and message, and remove these 2 classes. Then in our table body, we'll just remove the last 2 columns here, and then we'll remove the remaining rows, since we only need 2 rows. So now it looks like this. We have to open the file. Now it looks like this. Let's continue. Our first column in the table body will give the class author call, because we want to set the minimum width later on. Then let's just remove all of this content and create a div tag. Inside this we'll write by author name. Whoops. And we'll put the author name inside an anchor tag, like so. The next column will get the class post call. And inside this we have first the post subject, and then the post title. We don't need this link. We'll wrap the post subject text, the span tag, with the class font weight bold to make this text bold, like so. Then in next line we have the date. We'll just add the span tag again with the font weight bold class, and then the text posted, and close the span tag again. In our next table row, we'll remove this content, and then we'll just copy the content from before, paste it in. We'll change this text to joined, and we'll copy this date and time, and then we'll change the next text to posts, and that is 123. We'll add line breaks here to push part of the content down to the next line. Now we need to add the actual text content for the message or the post here. I'll just paste this in, 2 long paragraphs. And now we'll copy this table. Before we save it, I'll just have a quick look back in the browser, and we can see here that the first table has the table heading, but the second table doesn't have the table header. So back here, where we just pasted in the table, remove the table head so it goes straight into the table body. Let's save this and see what it looks like now. We'll update. We can see that it looks similar, but the columns don't have the correct width. To fix this, we need to target our columns like so. The author call class will have a min width of 12 em, and the post call will have a min width of 20 em. We'll also add some flex classes to the post call, the column with the post. We'll make it a flex container on large devices and up, and justify the content center. So we add the justified content LG between. That was what I meant. Justify content between. So these 2 divs will go out to each side of the parent element. Let's have a new look. Now we see that our columns have the correct width, and that these will have the flex utility justify content between for large devices and up. When we narrow down, we see that they are stacked on top of each other instead. We also see that this table is responsive, and we have the min width on both columns. Great. Now let's continue. We'll start with removing the form for the filter and sort widget, which we don't need anymore. We'll leave this as it is, and we'll remove this last button. Now we'll create the form element to reply to this post. So we create the form tag, give it the class MB3 to add some margin in the bottom. Then we will create a div tag with the class form group, which we use to group labels and input types. We create the label tag now with the attribute for with the value comment, and then the text reply to this post. Then we will create a text area element with the class form control and the ID comment, which we were referring to before in the for attribute. We'll make it 10 rows high and give it the placeholder text. Write your comment here. We'll make this a required input field by adding the attribute required. Now we'll add 2 buttons. The first button is a submit button with the type attribute with the value submit, and then the class btn and btn primary to give it the primary color. We'll give it the text reply. The next button will be a reset button with the type attribute with the value reset, and then the classes btn and btn danger to give it a danger color and the text reset. Let's have a look in the browser. We now see that we have removed the filter and sort widget. However, this text area is not quite high enough. So when we look here, we see that we forgot a closing quotation mark. So now we can see that we have the correct height. Okay. Now we want to add this inline login form. So we go back in our code editor. We create a div tag here. And now we want to add some Flex utility classes that works for large devices and up. I'll explain them along the way. First, we will make this a Flex container and align the items center for large devices and up, and also add some margin bottom with the size 3. Inside this, we create our form tag with the class form inline to make it an inline form. And then initially we'll display it as a block element. And then for small devices and up, turn this back into a flex element. This is because our D block will override the flex display value that the form inline class is setting. So we need to give the display flex value back again for small devices and up to make it an inline form. We'll add some margin to the right and to the bottom initially, but remove the margin in the bottom on large devices and up. Inside of our form, we'll now create a form group with margin 2 to the right and margin of 3 in the bottom initially, and remove the margin in the bottom on medium devices and up. Inside this form group, we first create the label element with the for attribute with the value email and the class mr2 to give it some margin to the right. we'll give it the text email. Then we'll create an input element with the type being email. The class form control, the placeholder attribute with the value example at email.com, the ID email, which we were referring to here in the for attribute, and the attribute required. Now we'll create one more form group, the div tag with the class form group and a margin to the right of 2. We create the label tag again, the for attribute with the value password, and the class mr2 to add margin to the right side. We'll give it the text password. And then we create the input element with the type password, the class form control, the ID password, and the attribute required to make this a required input field. Now we'll create the submit button, which is a button with the type submit, and we give it the classes btn and btn primary, and the text login. In case that the user doesn't have a profile yet, we will create an option to create an account. First, we'll create this span tag with the margin right 2 and the text or and 3 dots, and then we'll create an anchor tag with the class btn and bt success to make this a button with the success color, and we'll give it the text create account. Finally, underneath this form, we'll add a paragraph with small text and an anchor tag inside, and the text would be, have you forgotten your account details? This will make it possible for the user to navigate to some kind of help page if they have forgotten their account details. Let's take a look in the browser. We now see that we have this inline form in the bottom. If we compare it to the finished version, this is the finished version and this is our version. We see that it looks the same in the bottom. On a smartphone, it will stack vertically, and then the alignment will adjust when we increase the width of the browser window. One thing that we forgot to create is an example of how to use an image in a post. So we'll just go back and do that. This image should be placed in between these two paragraphs here. So we'll just create an image tag with the source being an image from place, hold it, with the dimensions 600 times 400 pixels. To make this responsive, we need to add the class img fluid. Let's have a look. Now we see that we have this image as well. This was our post page.